Hello, Year 5 and 6, and a very happy World Book Day. Your costumes are amazing. Thank you so much for getting so dressed up. Miss Draper, you could have made more of an effort. Come on. I'm here this afternoon because I want to read you a little bit of a story, as it's World Book Day and I'm not in school. And this afternoon, I've chosen to read you a little bit of a book that I've read recently that I think you might enjoy. And it's called The Secret of Platform 13 by Eva Ibbotson. And you can see there a silver badge on it. It's actually 25 years old, this book. So it's nearly as old as me. And the reason why I've chosen to read it to you is because I know we've got a lot of Harry Potter fans in years 5 and 6, and a lot of you have read the Harry Potter series. And when I read the blurb on the back, it's got similar characters to the Harry Potter story. And it also made me think about it being called Platform 13, about how Harry and the other children enter Hogwarts, get to the train to Hogwarts on platform 9 3/4. So I'm going to read you a little bit, and if you really enjoy it, you can borrow it from me, or you can look in the library for it, ask Mrs. Snape, or spend some of your pocket money. It's always good to read a really good book. Chapter 1. If you went into a school nowadays and said to the children, "What is a gump?" you would probably get some very silly answers. "It's a person without a brain, like a chump," a child might say. Or, "It's a camel whose hump has got stuck." Or even, "It's a kind of chewing gum." But once, this wasn't so. Once every child in the land would have told you that a gump was a special mound, a grassy bump on the earth, and that in the bump was a hidden door which opened every so often to reveal a tunnel which led to a completely different world. They would have known that every country has its own gump, and that in Great Britain, the gump was in a place called the Hill of the Cross of Kings, not far from the River Thames. And the wise children, the ones that read the old stories and listen to the old tales, would know more than that. They would have known that this particular gump opened for exactly 9 days, every 9 years, and not 1 second longer. And it was no good changing your mind about coming or going, because nothing would open the door once that time was up. But the children forgot. Everyone forgot. And perhaps you can't blame them. Yet the gump is still there. It's under platform 13 of King's Cross railway station. And the secret door is behind the wall of the old gentleman's cloakroom, with its flappy posters saying, "Trains get you there," and its chipped wooden benches and the dirty ashtrays in which the old gentlemen used to stub out their smelly cigarettes. No one uses this platform anymore. They have built newer, smarter platforms with rows of shiny luggage trolleys and slot machines that actually work, and television screens which show you how late your train is going to be. But platform 13 is very different. The clock has stopped. Spiders have spun their webs across the cloakroom door. There's a left luggage office with a note saying, "Not in use." And inside it has an umbrella covered in mould, which a lady left on the 5:25 from Doncaster, the year of the Queen's Silver Jubilee. The chocolate machines are rusty and lopsided, and if you were fooling enough to put your money in one of it would make a noise like rump and swallow it. And you would wait there for the rest of your life for the chocolate to come out. Yet, when people tried to pull down the part of the station and redevelop it, something always went wrong. An architect who wanted to build shops there suddenly came out in awful boils and went to live in Spain. And when they tried to relay the tracks for electricity, the surveyor said the ground wasn't suitable and muttered something about subsidence and cracks. It was as though the people knew something about platform 13. But they didn't know what. But in every city, there are those who have not forgotten the old days in the old stories. The ghosts, perhaps, for example. Ernie Hobbs, the railway porter who spent all his life working at King's Cross and still liked to haunt round the trains. He knew. And so did his friend, the ghost of the cleaning lady called Mrs. Partridge, who used to scrub out the parcels office on her hands and knees. The people who plodged about in the sewers under the city and came up occasionally through the manholes beside the station. They all knew. And so, in their own way, did the pigeons. They knew that the Gump was still there, and they knew where it led. By a long, misty and mysterious tunnel to a secret cove where a ship waited to take those who wished it to an island so beautiful that it took your breath away. The people who lived on it just called it the island. But it had all sorts of names. Avalon, St. Martin's Land, the place of the sudden mists. Years and years ago, it was joined to the mainland, but then it broke off and floated away slowly westwards, just as Madagascar floated away from the continent of Africa. Islands do that every now and again, but haven't done it for millions of years. It's nothing to make a fuss about. With the floating islands, of course, came the people who were living on it. Sensible people, mostly who understood that everyone did not have to have exactly 2 arms and legs, but might be different in shape and different in the way they thought. So they lived peacefully with ogres who had 1 eye, or dragons, of whom there were a lot about in those days. They didn't leap into the sea every time they saw a mermaid comb her hair on a rock. They simply said, "Good morning." They understood that Ella women had hollow backs and hated to be looked at on a Saturday, and that if trolls wanted to wear their beards so long that they stepped on them every time they walked off, then that was entirely their own affair. They lived in peace with the animals too. There were a lot of interesting animals on the island, as well as ordinary sheep and cows and goats. Giant birds who had forgotten how to fly had laid eggs the size of kettle drums, and brolunkins like blobs of jelly with dark red eyes, and seahorses with manes of silk which galloped and snorted in the waves. But it was the mist makers that the people of the island loved the most. These endearing animals are found nowhere else in the world. They are white and small, with soft fur all over their bodies, rather like baby seals. But they don't have flippers. They don't have short legs and big feet like the feet of a puppy. Their black eyes are huge and moist. Their noses are whiskery and cool, and they pant a little as they move because they look like a small pillow and they don't like going very fast. The mist makers weren't just nice, they were exceedingly important. Because as the years passed and newspapers were washed up on the shores, the refugees came through the Gump with stories of the world above. The islanders became more and more determined to be left alone. Of course, they knew that some modern inventions were good, like electric blankets to keep people's feet warm in bed, or fluoride to stop their teeth from rotting. But there were other things they didn't like at all, like nuclear weapons or tower blocks at the tops of which old ladies shivered and shook because the lifts were bust, or battery hens stuffed two in a cage. And they dreaded being discovered by passing ships or aeroplanes flying too low. Which is where the mist makers came in. Those sensitive creatures, you see, absolutely adore music. When you play to a mist maker, its eyes grow and it lets out a breath and gives a great sigh. Ah, it will. Ah, ah. And each time it sighs, mist comes from its mouth. Clean, thick, white mist, which smells of early morning and damp grass. There are hundreds and hundreds of mist makers lolloping over the turf or along the shore of the island, and that means a lot of mist. So when a ship was sighted or a speck in the sky, which might be an aeroplane, all the children ran out of school with their flutes and their trumpets and their recorders and started to play to the mist makers. And the people who might have landed and poked and pried saw only clouds of whiteness and went on their way. I'm going to leave it there this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed it. So that's The Secret of Platform 13. Come and find me if you want to borrow it. Have a fantastic rest of the World Book Day and a great weekend too. Take care.